Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Monday, July 13th regular council meeting. I'm just turning down my microphone here. Oh, okay. I was getting feedback there. Okay. So I assume everybody had a chance to read over the package that I get. So let's start off. I call the meeting to order at 1:03. And is there any added items to the agenda? Looking to council. I see none, so that's 1.1. 1.2, adoption of the agenda. Through consensus, is everybody in agreement to move forward with this agenda? Yep. And so that is unanimous through consensus. Thank you very much. Moved on to item number 2, adoption of the previous minutes. I hope everybody had a chance to review those as well. Was there any additions, deletions, or questions that arose from those previous minutes? Okay, seeing none, then do we have a adoption through consensus of the meeting minutes? That is passed as well unanimously. Thank you very much. That takes us to number 3, public hearings. So for the audience that may be online, please look on the agenda for the link to be able to join us on the public hearing, so that if you do want to be heard, that this is the link that will help you do that. Okay, I'm going to start off with a pecuniary interest for municipal councillors. Section 172 of the MGA says that you may not take part in the discussion and decision making on any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest. The legislation attempts to ensure that you are not discriminated either for or against by virtue of your membership on council. If you have a pecuniary interest, you are to disclose that you have an interest and its general nature prior to any discussion. If you are to abstain from any discussion and from voting, you are to leave the room until the matter has been discussed and voting concluded. You are to make sure that your abstention is recorded in the minutes. You are not to be discriminated against and are entitled to participate in the public hearing as a member. Okay, so with that, hearing for bylaw 2026-19 land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment open at 1:05 p.m. And I would now ask Municipal Planner Mr. Sloan to explain the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bylaw 2026-19 proposes to rezone the property of 4606 48th Street from the traditional neighborhood district, or RTD, to the mixed use node district, or MUN. The subject property is located within the East Olds Area Redevelopment Plan and specifically within the Highway Overlay District. This overlay district speaks to allowing a mix of residential and commercial uses, including live workspaces. The parcel directly to the north is zoned commercial general, while the parcels to the west and south are already zoned MUN. In fact, the entire block that the subject land sits on is already zoned MUN except for the subject parcel. While the parcel is currently zoned RTD for traditional neighborhood, its use for many decades has been a car wash, so it is commercial in nature right now. The proposed bylaw amendment aligns with the East Olds ARP, and given that the remainder of the block is MUN, administration does believe that this is appropriate for this property to be rezoned as the same. MUN would allow for the development of more residential units or commercial amenities, or both of which are encouraged by the ARP in this location. And with the proximity to Olds College and visibility from Highway 2A, commercial uses are welcome along the highway. This bylaw received first reading on June 8th. Notice of a public hearing was posted on the town website and in 2 issues of the Albertan newspaper, as well as circulated to neighboring property owners. No correspondence, either for or against, has been received by administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Okay, we move into presentation section of the public hearing. As presentations before council shall be brief and to the point, limited to 3 minutes. Council shall not allow cross-examination of persons giving information, and it will not be necessary for persons giving information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of the speaker after each presentation for clarification purposes. No debating or questioning from the floor will be allowed. No written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. So now I will ask for the people. I'll ask the first time for anyone that's in favor of the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation.
Mayor Daley, there is no one online.
There's no one online. Thank you. So now I call the second time for anyone in favor of the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Seeing none, I move down and I call the first time for anyone opposed to the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. Second time for anyone opposed to come forward, opposed to the proposed bylaw to come forward and make a presentation. I move down to, I call for the first time for anyone deemed affected by the proposed law to come forward and make a presentation. And second time, deemed anyone who is affected by the proposed law to come forward and make a presentation. All right, seeing none. Sorry. I turn to council now. If you have any comments or questions, council. Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to either Mr. Sloan or CAO Williams. Just for my own curiosity's sake, is this a admin-led request or a request from the landowner?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, this was an application from the landowner.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Mr. Sloan. So just to follow up on that initial question, do we know of a concept or an expression of interest or intent beyond the current use? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, the landowner did provide now on screen a concept design. This is not what we would likely see in a development application. It was just they wanted to show they do intend to create a mixed-use development for the site in some form, with commercial on the ground level, facing the highway and the street to the south, with residential as part of the development as well. But it's very early on, and they don't know even the type of residential, whether it would be townhomes or above the commercial. They haven't even come to that decision yet. But in some form, we're likely to see an application within the next few years or 1 year, I'm not sure, for a mixed-use development.
And for everybody's, this was, I believe, the third picture in the agenda package as well. And it was a description in there. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to our municipal planner, Mr. Sloan. Mr. Sloan, just to refresh my memory, when we say that we've circulated information and letters to the surrounding neighborhood and buildings there, exactly what is that area proximity again?
Thank you, and through the chair, it's 20 meters or adjacent. So if it's further than 20 meters but directly across a road, they are included in the circulation. So in this, for this one, there was roughly half a dozen recipients of that letter.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments to Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and to Director Salone. So is 20 meters sort of an average for most municipalities? Like, 20 meters really doesn't seem like a lot. I'm just wondering, is that a standard for most municipalities when they're directing literature to residents?
Thank you. And through the chair, I'm not sure exactly what the most common standard would be for municipalities. I do know that there was a review undertaken. It was just before I started here, so probably 2020, to establish this new standard, because prior to that we didn't really have one, and we just circulated based on how we felt to. So a number of options were presented to council at the time, of different radiuses, but also different ways of doing it, like such as view sheds. Like if you can see the property from yours, then it didn't matter what the distance was, you would be included. Ultimately, the council at the time voted to go forward with the 20-meter buffer or area. And like I say, that was last reviewed in about 6 years ago, I think. So certainly we can, I can take a quick look and see what is common. I can reach out to municipal peers and question them on that.
Thank you. I think that would just be some good information. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll turn the floor back over to Mr. Sloan for any final comments.
No further comments from me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. So at 1:15, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2026-19 land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment closed. So that takes us back to our agenda package then on page 10. And we're looking at some motions there. Councillor Blatz, and then come to you, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that bylaw 2026-19, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that bylaw 2026-19, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you. And again, any last questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous, so that is carried as well. Thank you very much. That moves us now to 3.2, bylaw 2026-20, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment. So the pecuniary interest to municipal councillors stands as it did in the public hearing. So please be aware, if you do have any pecuniary interest, that you follow by the outline given in the prior public hearing. Okay, so at 1:16, I declare public hearing for bylaw 2026-20, land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment open. And I ask the municipal land use planner, Mr. Sloan, to explain the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw.
Thank you again. Bylaw 2026-20 proposes to rezone 4535 51st Avenue from commercial general, or CGD, to mixed use node, or MUN, to allow for residential development. The subject site is within the Uptown Olds Area Redevelopment Plan, which identifies this land as future medium to high density residential in its future land use concept map, supporting this proposed amendment. The neighboring parcels to the west, north, and east are already zoned mixed-use node, while the parcels to the south are zoned CGD, or commercial general. Administration is in support of the proposed amendment, as the rest of this 51st Avenue cul-de-sac is already developing under medium-density residential and mixed-use development, and therefore this rezoning would align with the context of its surrounding area. This bylaw received first reading on June 8th, and notice of the public hearing was posted on the town website and in 2 issues of the newspaper, as well as circulated to neighboring property owners. Since the agenda was created, I have received some correspondence that I will read into the public record. I think it's best suited for the section of those affected. It's from the condo board of the building to the northwest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Okay, so then we'll get into the public input into this hearing. So presentations before the council will be limited to 3 minutes. Council shall not allow cross-examination of persons giving information, and it will not be necessary for persons giving information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes, and no debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. No written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. So I will ask for people that are addressing council, when they step forward, to state your name and address and indicate if you're speaking on behalf or for a client, company, or citizens group. So now I'll ask for the first time. Is there anybody online?
Mayor Daley, there is no one online, and our attendee in the gallery does not wish to speak.
Okay.
Just for your
All right, so then we are not going to go through the in favor, or are we still just deemed affected? Yeah, okay. Just the letters from Mr. Sloan.
Thank you. And again, this is from the Chinook Estates Condo Corporation, which is the building just to the northwest on this same cul-de-sac. We are writing on behalf of residents and the condo board at 4574 51st Avenue to express our concerns regarding proposed bylaw number 2026-20, which proposes to rezone 4535 51st Avenue from commercial general district to mixed-use node. Our primary concern is the lack of parking restrictions on the cul-de-sac and connecting street in this area. Currently, there are no posted no parking signs, and we are already experiencing issues with vehicles, including semi-trucks and stock trailers associated with a nearby business parking on these streets. This creates serious safety concerns as it restricts the ability of emergency vehicles and regular traffic to move safely through the area. A mixed-use node development will bring additional residents, visitors, and commercial traffic to an area that is already struggling with on-street parking. We anticipate these problems will worsen significantly once the development is occupied. We would also like to draw council's attention to 2 adjacent vacant lots that have not yet been sold. These properties could be developed at any time or within the next 5 years, and any future development on these lots will further increase traffic and parking demand in this already constrained area. We strongly urge that a clear parking framework be established now before additional development compounds the situation. We respectfully request that council require the installation of no parking signs on the cul-de-sac and connecting street as a condition of or in conjunction with the approval of bylaw 2026-20. Addressing this proactively will help protect the safety and livability of this neighborhood for both existing and future residents. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. We welcome the opportunity to discuss our concerns further. Respectfully, residents and condo board at 4574 51st Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. All right, I'll look to council for any comments or questions now. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Manager Sloan. I believe it was earlier this year, we discussed some water issues that had arisen on this land in the northeast corner of this. Is there any concerns that we might have with this development, specifically with that water, that issue that we were having before?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, any development permit application would require a stormwater management plan that we would review to see how stormwater and all underground services connect to town facilities, as well as ensuring that overland drainage doesn't impact neighboring properties. So a more detailed look at those reviews would take place at the time of a development permit application.
Go ahead, CEO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Just to add to Mr. Sloan's comments, the town does own, if you may recall, where the cursor is on the screen, the north and a little bit to the east property, and that is designed as a stormwater catchment area, which when this entire area was built, I want to say 2014, give or take, 2017, it was intended to capture the stormwater here. It's not the most ideal design, but we're confident that as of right now in the zoning stage that any development will have to apply to it, but it's going to work even as wonky as it might seem in this having a vacant parcel like this and design. But there's no concerns right now, but as Kyle mentioned, at the development phase, we'll have to look closer and ensure we're not overburdening the system there.
Thank you. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to either Municipal Planner Sloan or to CAO Williams. So going to onto the issues that have been brought forward by the letter from the Chinooks apartment building there or condo building. When we get to, or if we get to a building or a development permit, we can address parking issues at that point in time, can we not, if these concerns can't be mitigated? And I guess sort of supplementary to that too, some of the parking issues I think that they've mentioned there, are those due to the current construction that's being built, or is that due just to the business properties that within the area that these trucks are parking? Because that is something I think that we could possibly be addressing it currently rather than wait until there is this potential building being built, if I understand correctly.
Thank you, and through the chair, that is something I was going to discuss regardless if it was asked when it was my turn to speak again, but since it was asked, yes, they specifically state that the parking issues are at least partially the result of people attending businesses in the area already, existing businesses in the area. Those are issues that can and probably are best suited to being dealt with outside of this rezoning discussion. But when it comes to this particular development, when we do receive applications, we do circulate to protective services as well. So if there are concerns about emergency access, that's also addressed then. As far as what direction we would take on no parking signs or closing that to on-street parking, I'm not sure at this point until I have those discussions with protective services and operations.
Supplemental?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Daley. So then that was going to be part of my question, is that have we already spoken with our emergency services or protected services department? But so if this area structure plan was done probably prior to 2017, when that first building was built in there. So this has already been deemed, we are changing it from what would be deemed a commercial on the bottom with potential residential on top, which fits in with the area structure redevelopment plan. So then if we're removing the commercial, then we're just going to have residential. They will have to have the adequate parking stalls for a residential, which would eliminate more congestion from a commercial type business on the bottom, if I understand correctly. And so therefore, this would be a better fit in this particular lot to be strictly residential as compared to residential commercial mix.
Yes, thank you again through the chair. Given the on-street parking constraints in the area, I highly doubt there would be any entertaining of parking variances for whatever use goes in here. So yes, they would be required to have all required parking on the parcel itself. As well, I will say the current zoning also does allow multifamily residential. It just requires commercial components. So for instance, the building under construction to the west that you can see in the photo, we could approve that building in the current zoning. But it requires commercial, and the applicant in this case doesn't want commercials. They want just residential. So they're applying for this rezoning to remove the requirement of commercial, but the level of density of either zone is the same.
Are you good? Councilor Blatz? Okay. Councilor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Development Officer Sloan. I think you partially answered my question, but I'll put something out there anyway. I am concerned about the densification. I realize this is just one parcel of a couple of parcels in that area, but we do have a fairly large build going on there now. Do we have, does administration have any concerns? The Planning and Development Department have any concerns relative to the access egress into this area? It's a pretty tiny, cozy, compact area, basically limited to one entry exit way right now. Are there any issues or concerns, or how would those be identified going forward? And if I may, as related to that, is there, I'll ask my same question, is there a concept or an intent to develop this area? Thank you.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'll answer kind of in two separate ways. The first is that these discussions were foreseen in 2017 when the development agreement for this area took place. And in fact, there has been identified since that time a secondary access to this particular parcel from 44th Street as a potential option for development that goes up the east property line past that parking area that's on screen to the east, accessing 44th Street. Further though, it's quite likely that as part of any development permit application, we would require the developer to conduct a traffic impact assessment, or a TIA, because yes, we have had discussions about the level of traffic and the level of density that is potentially being introduced to a cul-de-sac. So by having an updated TIA completed by a developer, that would give us a better idea with numbers backing up the rationale for how much density and how many units are acceptable or appropriate on this site. Until we have that, we don't really have quantitative numbers to make decisions on for development. So that's why we would require that prior to any approval of a development. But the developer won't get to that stage unless a rezoning has gone through.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I think Councillor Wilson asked the question, and but I am concerned with all the high density in there. I get we need that, and this residential high density building that would be built. Now, would we be saying, okay, once you get to that, is it 1.2 parking stalls per unit, or is it 1.5? Or most people, there's 2 people that have a vehicle that live in an apartment. So with this amount of density, I would have to really stress that we do have another entrance coming and going, because this little road here is not really sufficient for that amount of residential that's going to be there.
Thank you. And through the chair, sure, yeah. I will just comment that we have, so while I haven't formally circulated an application to Protective Services, for instance, We have had discussions with them in informal settings to discuss secondary access and things like that. So both the applicant and all departments that would be involved are aware that that is quite likely the direction we would go in a development application, is requiring secondary access for that reason. And again, just having a TIA would help us better support that request or that requirement.
Supplemental? Well, let me go to Councillor Taylor then. I'll come back to you. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through you to Mr. Sloan. Moving this to mixed use, does that represent a significant loss of commercial land? And if so, is there some kind of consequences we should be thinking about? Thanks.
Thank you, and through the chair, not really. So moving it to mixed use just means that there will be residential. So a mixed use development would be allowed in either the current zoning or the proposed zoning. Now, yes, in this case, the applicant is doing that to specifically not do any commercials. So I suppose in this case, the end result is less commercial in this particular site. But again, the area redevelopment plan doesn't identify this for any commercial, and there is available commercial inventory in the area that is unused still and has been for some time, including immediately to the south. There's large commercially zoned land that is not occupied.
Thank you for your patience, Councillor Overwater.
I have all the patience in the world. Thank you, Mayor Daly. Just going back to the initial request about the parking. So are we able to help those residents out now with putting no parking signs up and maybe having the bylaw people go in there and patrol it a bit more so that, you know, these people aren't parking there maybe overnight? I don't know, like big trucks. I don't know what they're doing, but are we able to do something like that to mitigate some of that parking issue now?
And through the chair, I'll take that one. We can and do patrol, obviously, any parking infractions that happen, and we have power to do it as we see fit or when we see fit. Given construction right now on the existing building, we don't want to, like during certainly 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, impede that construction. But once should this be approved and this development kicks off, it's not the same thing. If you look on the screen, the building under construction is contained on one lot. It's a relatively smaller footprint, and just its configuration makes it more difficult to access. So a lot of that traffic, construction traffic, is pushed onto the cul-de-sac. The yellow highlighted lot is just where the building will go. They are also purchasing the lot to the north, which is where their parking lot will be. So there's a lot more ability for them to, well, not just ability, because they have to be more contained on site, given that by the time they start, this building should be at least operational from a commercial perspective. Again, not to preempt the development process, but I believe like the request that this condo board is making the cul-de-sac no parking, it makes a lot of sense to me right now. I think it's a very logical thing to do without obviously impeding necessary construction, parking, and traffic. And to the point with traffic, because we have traffic and parking, in my experience, when you have commercial uses, that's a much more intense traffic situation than residential, even high-density residential, whereas high-density residential poses more parking concerns. So that's why updating the traffic impact assessment is going to be, you know, I would say essential when the development permit kicks off. I don't think the intersection is going to be a big issue as it was designed fairly recently. And even the future access to the north, I think there's probably still good rationale to pursue it in the future, but from a traffic management perspective, it may not be required right away, but that's what the study's for. Parking, certainly, as Mr. Sloan alluded to, we wouldn't be able to entertain many, if any, variances here at all, in addition to restricting parking on that cul-de-sac. But again, more of an issue for development processes at the time.
Thank you. Councillor Kirsch?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Mr. Sloan. Back to parking, I know the town has the ability to say, as Marianne was asking, 1.2, 1.5 per unit. Is there a mechanism to force those parking stalls to be tied to a unit so that we don't see the same situation that we have on 63rd, where residents are being forced to pay extra for their parking, and so they're just deciding to park on the street? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, I would have to look into what sort of conditioning power we would have for applying standards that are not stated explicitly in our bylaw. I don't believe the bylaw right now, our land use bylaw, speaks to connecting or linking one parking stall or two with specific units. So if there are no, if it's a permitted use with no variances requested, I'm not sure if we would have the authority to require more than what the bylaw says. So I'm not sure if we can do that. But it is certainly something I'll look into. And if any variances are requested, that automatically triggers the ability for us to do a lot more, to apply a lot more conditions. Not saying that there would be variance requested to the parking numbers or anything like that, but variances in general, whether that's to parcel coverage or landscaping type or area or any number of things, as soon as a variance is requested, our conditioning power is increased quite a bit.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, through you to the development officer. I'm mentally flipping my coin in my head on this amendment. I'm just wondering, and certainly, if I understand, so the move from, or amendment from CGD to MUN allows multi-dwelling unit, but doesn't require commercial, which is currently the requirement under CGD as it's zoned now. And we all know our push for multi-unit dwelling builds, and we have been addressing that. But our housing strategy of a year or two ago also addressed other needs for housing around affordability, attainability, and a variety of housing at more affordable, more reasonable price points. Does this particular, because I do have a concern with density and densification. Does this particular piece of land here lend itself to some kind of alternate development? I don't know, a tiny home, row, townhomes, row housing, that sort of thing, to address some of our other needs in the housing strategy? Sorry for the extended question. Thanks.
Thank you. And through the chair, this particular land, I suppose that's a better question for developers. I'm not entirely sure, for instance, what the cost was for this and what the development costs for different types of housing are, and what is feasible on this land and what isn't. So I suppose I'm probably not the best person to answer that question most correctly, because I just don't have the knowledge of the development industry.
CEO Williams?
Thanks, and through the chair, again, just my opinion, I don't have solid evidence to back this up. When you talk about row housing, what we call in the housing strategy, the missing middle, besides the zoning having to be updated, this area was designed for a higher density. One of the issues is just the lack of footprint available, because getting 90 or 70 or 100 units onto one parcel, if you go a row housing townhome model, you're going to reduce that by a significant fraction. So the costs that went into developing this and holding it and building it, I can't see this being attractive for a missing middle type of development. Not saying it wouldn't happen, but when you have larger footprints like we saw down in on Memorial, the last rezoning we did, a land that's already more set up and adjacent to existing like uses, that's generally where developers would be attracted to. This area, I would say, is suited for commercial and higher density residential. And it's not priced either at a very attractive piece for row housing.
And I'll just ask the question, this rezoning was applied for by the developer. And really, we should be containing our conversation to this application and not questioning his choice on what type of housing to put into this lot. We are looking at the zoning that is in front of us now. Okay, thank you. Further? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daly, and through you to Mr. Sloan. If I'm hearing the letter from Chinook Estates, they have concerns about the navigability of that area with fire trucks. Certainly, that's something that we should be able to allay their concerns. And if assuming that entire cul-de-sac has cars parked everywhere around, can we get a definitive yes or no if a fire truck can navigate that? Thanks.
Thank you, and through the chair, yes, that's absolutely some of the conversations we have with the fire department, as well as the secondary access, because we did have conversations about if a truck has to be moved into the subject property to attend a fire at this building, are they able to quickly get in and out as well, out of the parking lot? So the parking lot design, the street design, the width of all the right-of-ways and their turning radius, that's all part of the conversations we have with them, and they have standards. We essentially aligned with the City of Calgary standards on all of those numbers and metrics that they do as part of their review of the development applications. And they would certainly look into the existing situation too. I believe if they had concerns about access through the existing street, our department probably would have heard about it by now. But as density increases and traffic increases and parking demand increases in the area, that's certainly conversations that we have with them on an ongoing basis.
Councillor Taylor.
Supplemental, thank you, to Mr. Sloan. So if I'm hearing you correctly, we don't have the answer yet, but once we do, can we make sure that we reach out to Chinook Estates to make sure that they know? Thanks.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Once we do know, and once we have some direction, we won't treat this letter as just correspondence about this rezoning application, because really it's speaking to an existing issue, concern that they have. So there should be an ongoing conversation with them and the town. So we will be in touch with them in some form, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any further comments or questions? All right, Municipal Planner, Mr. Sloan, would you like to make any final comments?
I don't think I have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 2026-20 land use bylaw 2025-14 amendment. I declare it closed at 1:46 p.m. Thank you for your discussion and all your questions, and let's move back to our agenda package on page 12, and I'll be looking for motions. Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I move that bylaw 2026-20 amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. for the, Counselor Taylor, for the next motion?
Thanks, Mayor Daly. I move that bylaw 2026-20, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor. Any last questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much for that. So that passes. So now we move on to item number 4, bylaws. 4.1, bylaw 2026-21 land use to the 2025-14. And I'll turn this over to CAO Williams for introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Daly, and this is Mr. Sloan again to walk council through first reading.
Thank you once again. Bylaw 2026-21 proposes to rezone Lot 6, Block 13, Plan 2396HE, also known as 5337 49th Avenue, from Traditional Neighborhood District, or RTD, to Mixed Use Center, MUC. This would allow redevelopment to occur in the form of commercial, residential, or mixed-use development. There is no development proposed at this time, but this is an application from the landowner. And the applicant has stated a desire to proceed with mixed-use development in some form on the property. The subject site is located within the Uptown Area Redevelopment Plan, which identifies this as being future commercial zoning, while the Municipal Development Plan identifies it as being within the Uptown Mixed-Use Area. Additionally, the parcel immediately to the north is already zoned MUC, and the parcel across 54th Street to the south is zoned MUN, but operated as a commercial use. That one is a law office. The recommendation is that this bylaw be given first reading as presented, and that Monday, August 24th at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2026-21. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Does anybody have any preliminary questions in regards to this for clarification? Being that it is just first reading, I'll look for somebody to make the motion then. Councillor Wilson, I'll get you next time.
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion that bylaw number 2026-21, amendment to land use bylaw 2025-14 be given first reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any last questions or discussion? See none, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Mr. Sloan, for your presentations and discussion today. Okay, down to item number 5, business. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Go ahead. Councillor Blatz, are you good to go? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. I move that Monday, August 24th, 2026 at 1 p.m. in council chambers be set as the date, time, and place for a public hearing on bylaw number 2026-21.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is passed as well. Thank you very much. All right, now we'll move to number 5, business. Okay, and so 5.1, sponsorship request for Equal High School Awards. CAO Williams for introduction.
Thank you once again. This sponsorship request before council is from the Olds High School for $1,000 for the 2026 Student Excellence Awards. Like many of these I bring before council, this is a recurring ask and a recurring funding stream that council provides to this awards program at the high school. It's relatively straightforward, but take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for CAO Williams on this application? And this, just to clarify, this is coming out of the Mount View Power profits?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing none then. Do I have somebody to make a motion, please? Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Daley. I move that council approve sponsorship in the amount of $1,000 to Ecole Olds High School in support of the 2026 Student Excellence Awards, with funding to be provided from the Mountain View General Sponsorship Budget.
Thank you. Any last comments or questions? All right, all those in favor? Opposed? That is passed. Thank you very much. 5.2, Community Services Quarterly Report. CAO Williams, again, for introductions.
Yes, thank you. And Director Lapointe is with us here today to walk council through this quarter's report for community services. Over to you, Guy.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor Daley and Council. Today I am happy to present the Community Services Quarter 2 report for your review. Slide on to second slide there, starting with community development. You can see our programming remains strong with significant year-over-year growth in the seniors cooking class in particular. Our community room bookings are trending upwards with increases across all categories. Community is aware of the opportunity to book that space and is making use of that space to support their respective programs. Move on to cemetery sales. If you recall, cemetery plot sales were weaker in quarter 1, but they've been robust this past quarter. So much so now that we're actually ahead of budget, so that's good news. And the Sunshine Bus ridership is continuing to see growth with an increase of about 14% over quarter 2 of 2025. The community development team hosted Seniors Week and received some very positive feedback from those events, both from partners who helped make the activities happen and from the program participants themselves. Volunteer Appreciation Week was also a success with 9 nominations made and 3 award recipients. And the Community Showcase made a move to the spring where it featured about 72 vendors. In quarter 3, summer camps will be in full swing. Parks parties started actually this past Thursday with the first held in Frank Wong Park. And the back to school barbecue bash, I don't want to talk about that yet, but is scheduled for August 25th. And work is underway on the new Community Catalyst Summit to foster additional capacity in local groups. And this is a new feature for us, just some positive comments we received for the community development team's work over the last quarter. I think if you read over them, the theme is really about social connection. Over to the Aquatic Center, where we see strong numbers, a 22% increase in overall visits in quarter 2. As well, past sales and private rentals were also very encouraging. But the only thing that dropped was Aquafit classes, and that's because we amended the schedule to have less classes. So everything else has climbed. This looks like it's less favorable utilization numbers for the Sportsplex, where the hours rented dropped. Although if you notice, the hours available also declined. That's because the Main and the Aux were closed in June. So that's why there's some confusing numbers there. Utilization rate has basically stayed the same. The peak time was up because we weren't open in June. So that's the explanation there. If you want a little bit more, feel free to ask questions about it afterwards. On the sports fields, despite our efforts adjusting the pricing with the sports fields, the hours rented have decreased, in some cases dramatically. While some of this is likely due to weather, there's a sense that minor sports registrations are down as well. So not the best news on that front at this point. In terms of facilities, again, there's no previous data to compare against, so this is the baseline for next year. But we were happy to report that there were no emergency repairs in quarter 2. In parks, most of our time was focused on training. That's because there were no returning summer mowing staff from 2025. So that's where the bulk of the time was spent, really, at this last quarter. I would also like to point out the continued decrease in vehicle and equipment R&M, which is a reflection, again, of the good work our new mechanic is doing. I should stop saying new, our mechanic is doing. As you may have heard, we're ahead of schedule on our electrical upgrade, and we've completed a revised roof assessment to help us with capital planning. We do have a new collaboration with the college where we receive support on arborist duties. And in an effort to increase that utilization on the sports fields, the parks team is now advising user groups on their conditions and allowing them to, the groups themselves to determine if they will move forward with planned activities. Previously, we would have just canceled bookings for the evening based on field conditions. Again, some nice feedback here from a visitor who attended the recent under 11 baseball tournament, sorry. As for communications, social media followers are still growing, as they should at this point, so that's a good sign. If we move on to the next slide, you'll see the amplifier marketing videos and old updates remain quite popular. There actually isn't any data on the marketing videos. That's because we actually designed and produced the videos in Q2, and we weren't releasing it until this week. So that's why you're not seeing numbers here. That'll launch this week. Voint is up to 570 subscribers, which is an increase of 14% over last quarter. But for perspective, that number was 0 at this time last year. So we're at 570 now at this point. In terms of how people find their information on the town of Olds, the organic search is still the best way for people to get that. Again, though I think I pointed this out in the past, the direct search feature is growing in popularity, definitely. It was a busy quarter for public participation with Coffee with Council starting, the conclusion of the Economic Development Survey, and the ongoing Regional Recreation Survey, which just closed here on July 10th. Communications launched the new Engage Olds website and introduced a new data center information page. The team also started the new Inside Scoop feature with Mayor Dan Daly playing host. In Q3, the annual budget survey is now open. The newest marketing video, as I said, is set to launch shortly. And we are committed to provide the most current data center information possible via the new engagement site. Quick snapshot of the MVP account enrollments. Again, steady growth when you look at the same period last year. We were also excited to see the average revenue per account climb. That bucks a trend that we've seen for some time at this point. So hopefully we'll continue to see that as the rest of the year progresses. MVP handed out its decisions regarding spring intake applicants. We're promoting ourselves regularly on social media on a weekly basis. And we were happy to announce new lower rates on July 1st. With that, I am open to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Lapointe. Turn to council if there's any questions. Councilor Blatz. Oh, was he? Okay, thank you. Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daly. Thank you, Councilor Blatz. The explosive increase in the swimming pool, our aquatic center usage, do we have an expected date, just based off of this trajectory, that the use of the pool might outpace the size of the facility?
Through the chair, we don't anticipate that will happen right now. Again, there's been a couple regional facilities that have been closed that would kind of explain the growth in attendance. We are keeping our eye on it, but I don't anticipate that will happen.
Good, thank you. Councilor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daly, and through you to Director Lapointe. Going back to the community showcase, and being that it's normally held in the fall, and this year we held it in the spring, what was the feedback on that? Was it, do you think it was better attended? Were our vendors up compared to fall showcases? So I just was wondering if that would be the trend to continue on in the spring as compared to moving it back to the fall.
Through the chair, feedback was mostly positive from what I understand. I mean, again, some people have difficulty with change. September is a busy month. It makes sense to sort of kick off a year, but there's lots of competing priorities at that point. So I don't think we heard any overt negative feedback at this point, if let's put it that way.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the director, and Councillor Blatz took a path of questioning that I was thinking. I'll just make the comment, from the eyeball test, as far as the public participants circulating around, it certainly seemed to be a lighter, in my opinion, a much lighter turnout than from what I remember from previous showcases when we had in the fall. So encouraged to see and hear that amongst the vendors, there was positive feedback, but my eyeball test that I can't see very well to start with would seem to indicate that attendance was certainly less. And you referred to that. September was a busy month. It was, I think, a nice day, finally. So I'm sure people were out enjoying that day as well.
Thank you. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and to Director Lapointe. It says in here the key performance indicators, direct search within olds.ca. Last quarter, 2025, was 8151. This quarter was 16,236. Do we actually know what was particularly searched for?
I would have to check in with the communications department. I mean, we could make some estimates here. I would assume that that would be a lot of data center related inquiries at this point. Again, people have landed on our site and are either having difficulty finding the information or simply using the search bar to find the information that they need. So I would expect that that would be the case.
Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Director Lapointe. The seniors' activities, the cooking classes, they seem to be well attended. Are those facilities being maxed out for those classes, or is there still room for growth within that sort of category?
Through the chair, it's a good question. I think getting close to maxed at this point, we could offer additional courses. And again, there is a small fee involved. I don't think it covers the cost of participation at this point. So it would be difficult for us to actually add on additional courses. So I know that for the most part, they've been up at that upper end of the threshold for sure.
Supplemental, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, that's held in the cooking lab at Holy Trinity?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. To Director Lapointe, when you talk about, we used to state, okay, the fields or you fields because of weather. Now we're leaving that up to the participants. Is that working? Like, I'm just kind of wondering, are the participants respecting if they go out there and the field is sopping wet, how much more damage it can do to it, and the cost of us having to repair the damage going out there when it's sopping wet? Like, is that working?
Through the chair, there is risk involved with it. I would say definitely there hasn't been any damage that has occurred, and for the most part, the user groups seem to be managing themselves quite well. So making a call not to use a field if it's sopping wet and using another that might be available to them. So the discretion seems to be good at this point.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley, and through to Director Lapointe. As I see that our Facebook followers are increasing, are comments also increasing at the same pace? And along with that, is the burden to administration to moderate said comments also increasing at that same pace? Thanks.
Through the chair, that's a challenging question. When there's controversial topics that are released at this point, we don't always turn on the comments feature. But I would say that I haven't seen a significant increase in the number of comments at this point. One of the strategies we are looking at in the future is actually having moderated discussions on our new engagement page, so that if there is a longer conversation required, it would be done on that page and we could moderate the page rather than that happening on social media.
Okay. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through to Director Lapointe. And thank you for your comments on social media and social media posts. I know that I've read several articles recently. I believe it's the city of Yellowknife has now shut all social media comments off, and many other municipalities are following suit, specifically because not only are the staff being targeted, and so are many of the municipally elected officials, and so that I'm finding that that's becoming more of a common practice than to allow comments to happen. So I would suspect that come some point in time, this may be an avenue that council may have to look at and develop or adapt some type of a policy that if it's going to be a vexatious nature or rude or insulting or even threatening, you know, and I know that already we are shutting those comments off, but I think going forward, it's something that along with many other municipalities are going to have to look at, sadly. So it's really detracting from what the initial intent of social media was, which is a sad situation all the way around. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I do have one in regards to the Sunshine Bus. The usage of the Sunshine Bus has gone up significantly, which kind of aligns with our transportation study that we had presented to us earlier in the year. And the initial recommendation was to move forward with an online electronic registration system. Have we looked into that, and is that something that we can plan for utilizations later on in the year here?
Mayor Daley, we are looking into it. Unfortunately, the budget wouldn't support it for this year at this point, so it wouldn't start until sometime next year. And we'll bring it forward as part of budget deliberations for council to consider.
Okay, sounds good. Any further questions? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and to Director Lapointe and his team. I'd just like to thank you. I am a senior, so I did participate in quite a few of the senior activities, and they were very well attended. And I think everybody had a great time, and everybody was very appreciative of it. So kudos to your department.
Yes, thank you. The other question I had from Coffee with Council was questions about the sports tourism and what we've done in the past. In particular, the big tournament that just took place here last weekend, the U11 tournament. It was asked of me if we keep track of those economic development numbers that come out of those types of tournaments in relationship to, you know, what goes in and what comes out, so to speak, as far as the town, and just how are we going to promote more of that going into the future?
Mayor Daley, sports tourism obviously is a focus for us. We'd like to see more events happening in town. That said, I would say that probably the reporting on this is a little wanting. I think that would be a collaboration between the recreation and economic development departments for us to get a good handle on what that looks like. But again, it does depend on, I would say, age level as well. You know, families would come and stay perhaps at campgrounds and motels. Older adults may choose to be outside of town, but will probably frequent the restaurants and drinking establishments in town, right? So I'm sure there's some methodology that we would have to work out between us and economic development to figure that out.
I think that would be great information for us to capture. You bet. Any further questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for your presentation, Director Lapointe. And I'll be looking for a motion from somebody. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and I move that council accepts the Community Services Q2 report for information.
Thank you. Any last questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor? That is passed. Thank you very much. So that takes us down to 5.3, Town of Olds 5-year capital plan. Sayo Williams for your introduction.
Thank you once again. So Before council today is the draft 5-year capital plan, which is a MGA requirement that the town have a current 5-year capital plan. It's before you today as a initial introduction before it gets formally introduced in the fall, closer to budget. The reason being is that as we are progressing in our asset management program and what fully understanding or better understanding what our capital deficit and liabilities are, and with the onboarding of Alvin, this being one of his first large projects he's taken on, he has adjusted things a little bit, and I believe he's made it more clear, not just because of the data we have now that's more robust, but also because of some of the clarifications and categorizations contained within. So Alvin's going to lead this presentation. I'll jump in again at the end to talk about kind of next steps between now and the fall. But Alvin, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm presenting the 5-year capital plan. It is referred to as a plan because its purpose is to inform Council of a strategic roadmap for capital projects over the next 5 years, covering the periods 2027 to 2031. It is being presented today to Council to provide insight for how the 2027 capital budget will be presented in the fall and to help understand the current deficit between the projects and their respective funding. So what is the current outlook? So next year, for 2027, the projected budget is roughly $6 million. And for the 4 years after that, from 2028 to 2031, we're looking at estimated at $31 million for a total 5-year capital project spend of $37 million. So this graph basically takes from the previous slide and just expands it year over year. So for 2027, as I mentioned to you, the capital spending projected is $6 million. For 2028, it jumps up to $8.6 million. And the reason why it jumps up significantly is there's 3 major projects that are on the horizon. One is there's $1 million for a utility squad truck for the fire department. The infrastructure improvement program is an increase of $500,000, as well as $2.5 million to replace the roof at the Sportplex. 2029, it's $5.8 million. For 2030, it jumps up to $7 million. And again, the major increases for that year is the infrastructure improvement program. There's another additional $500,000, as well as floor and interior walls replacement at the Sportplex for $700,000. And for 2031, the projected spending is $9.7 million, and the single most costly project for that year is the $2 million for the ice slab replacement at the Sportplex. Excuse me. So for the 2027 to 2031 capital plan, administration implemented a prioritization criteria to strategically plan the best course of action to address identified infrastructure needs in each year. So what type of projects are included? So there are the 3 categories I've shown that are on this slide. First one being mandatory, and mandatory are projects to ensure safety or meet regulatory requirements. And a couple of examples of those projects would be our ERP replacement. That will begin next year because our current platform, Microsoft, has said that they will stop supporting that platform as of December 31st, 2029. The other one is the roof replacement at the RCMP building. The second category is necessary, and these are projects to maintain current level of service. Great example is our infrastructure improvement program that we've been doing year over year. And the third category is discretionary, and these are projects that are strategic or developed to provide new economic development or improved level of service. An example would be renovation to Bay 3 for our transit service initiative. So in total, so the graph shows you, so the total over the 5 years is $37 million. So starting from the left, the necessary is 28.62 million, mandatory projects is 5.19 million, and the discretionary projects are $3.30 million. So how do we pay for all this? Which is the big question. So this is the funding strategy over the next 5 years. So beginning from the left, we're looking at reserves at roughly $9 million. Now, I just wanted to mention that the reserves, this study just takes into consideration what we're doing right now. And right now, we're contributing roughly $1 million every year to our reserves. So if we hold that strategy over the next 5 years, we will be looking at a deficit of $500,000 by 2031. Grants, roughly $10.7 million. The majority of those grants are coming from the LGFF, as well as the gas tax, or the CCBF. Debt, $6 million, $572,000 from operations. Cost sharing is $2.3 million. The cost sharing basically is coming from the fire service that we share with Mountain View. Right, Mountain View. And other is $130,000. I believe some of it is fundraising. What I'd like to point out to council is, out of the $37 million that I mentioned in the previous slides, $8.4 million of those projects are unfunded. So when we start going over these projects with a fine-tooth comb later on, we'll have to have a serious discussion as to how we prioritize those projects and how we're going to fund those projects going forward. But I just wanted to bring it to council's minds. Not everything is funded. There's $8.4 million that we need to find for these projects. In the last slide, I'm going to turn it over to our CAO.
Thank you, Alvin. So the first bullet there is the largest caveat of this draft plan, as it is a draft. By early fall, we hope to have our sanitary assessment complete. Last year, we did a CCTV of the majority of our sanitary system. Internal staff and our engineering contractor have reviewed most of the 70 plus kilometers of footage that was taken inch by inch. We're going to apply that with against the 2024 asphalt needs assessment, which obviously demonstrates the quality of our roads, and give us kind of what we should be investing based on the condition of those two assets. I do believe it's going to add an order of magnitude more to the capital needs of this 5-year plan, making that $8.4 million unfunded number quite a bit larger. Then that will be presented to council in an updated plan, and debate shall occur. It's not a great situation, but I do believe it's necessary that we have those honest conversations, the data that we didn't have available before. The one thing that's missing is a second bullet point. Facilities, our sportsplex, and to a lesser extent our aquatic center, have a pretty good assessment of what's required over the next 5 to 10 years from a capital upgrading point of view. Unfortunately, we own a lot of facilities. This building, obviously, but from the museum to the library to the Evergreen Center, the old fire hall, the old men's shed, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have to pivot our asset management functions towards trying to get a good assessment of what those existing assets are required, adding to the capital plan as well. And then for Alvin as well, he talked about debt a little bit. We do have, as per the corporate plan, a 2031 debt reduction strategy. Assuming council sticks to that, there will be debt coming off the books between now and then, and certainly in 2031 that will add to our capacity to, say, fund some of these projects, but taking on new debt will obviously change that debt equation and debt repayment plan as well. Asset management is an ongoing exercise, and even though underground, asphalt, and facilities are the outstanding items, there's always new things that will pop up. And then reserves. There's not a lot of extra cash available to fully fund our reserves, which not just helps us save for rainy days or outstanding projects or acts as an emergency fund, but also links to things like investment income as well. So from my point of view, looking at the higher level, I believe this plan is valuable. It will become more valuable, but it really speaks to the need to grow our tax base. Is that the only realistic way out of our capital deficit, which is built up over years and decades, is to grow how much assessment we have to tax instead of relying on existing taxpayers to shoulder that burden. Mixed in there, of course, is grant applications and funding partnerships and all of that, but there's not a clear way out of this capital deficit without growing our current assessment pie. Alvin, any words to wrap up?
I do not.
Okay, so Alvin's happy to take any questions you have.
That is awful nice of the director and CFO to answer any questions that we have, but we have to limit them to finances though, just so everybody knows, right? I do have one clarification. Your financial plan or your capital plan as you laid it out here, this is more or less the frame, and then there's going to be more and more parts of that added on as our assessment management and information comes into you and the other directors.
To the chair, absolutely. This is just a 30,000-foot view of what our capital plan will look like. But as you said, as we get better information from the asset management plan, and whatnot, we will be able to refine this a bit further for council for further consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, for that. Actually, that was going to be my comment, but anyway, I just, for clarity's sake, though, if I could, through you, Mayor Daley, to Director Allen. So, on average, though, for the next 5 to 6 years, we are looking at about $6.2 million per year annually in order to start chipping away at some of this capital plan. Do I understand that correct? Like on average, I mean, I know there's going to be priorities, and some years may be more and some years may be less, but on average, that's what we're looking at approximately, is it? For $37 million?
The chair to Councillor Blatz, absolutely. If you were to take the average, it would be a little over $6 million.
Okay, that's not really painting a much better picture, but it does break it down somewhat, you know, because I know that we don't really want to deplete, at least in my thoughts, we don't want to really be depleting our reserves anymore, but, or take on new debt, but this is going to be a very tough position that we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions because we can't depend on grants, and hopefully we can grow some partnerships, but potentially, as C.O. Williams said, our really only option is to grow our tax base, and that's potentially with industry and commercial business, I would think. We can't burden our residents any further than what they're already being taxed.
The chair to Councillor Blatz, absolutely. Coming this fall, when we bring the 2027 operating and capital budget, I will be presenting to council a strategy for our reserves. So that's something you can look forward to.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Director William. The $10.7 million of grants, most of that, I believe, is LGFF and CCEF. Are these grants that have already been fully approved? And what can we expect for additions to these grants going forward for these next 5 years?
What we've noted in our capital plan is there are different levels of filler grants that are available for some of these projects, and these projects will be conditional on those grants. So if those grants are not approved, we will be recommending to council not to move forward with those projects unless we find alternative funding.
No, new.
I'll go to Councillor Kirsch and then back to you.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Director Elim. Councillor Cook stole my first question, so I'll go with my second one. In the breakdown of spending administration, $2 million ask, can you elaborate on that a bit? You mentioned software. I'm assuming that's in that category, but could you just elaborate a little bit on what that spend would be?
To the chair, to Councillor Krush. Thank you. So the ERP program, we currently use a software called Diamond GP, and the main framework is supported by Microsoft. So basically, it is our financial software. That's where our billing, utilities, and accounting software. So basically, it's the primary program we use for the finances for the town. And so I would have to say back in 2025, maybe 2024, 2025, Microsoft said that they issued a paper that as of December 31st, 2029, they will no longer be supporting the Great Plains or the Dynamics part, which is the main component. So through discussion with the GFOA and there are many other municipalities in Ontario, actually across Canada, use Diamond GP, and the spend roughly, depending on the size of your municipality, can be anywhere between $1.5 to $2 million. So it's in our project, it's in our capital plan for the next 3 years, starting in 2027. But we are using, we will be using LGFF to fund that project.
Thank you. Councillor Cook?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to Director Elim again. The $6 million of debt that is included in the plan, most of it coming in the year 2031, I assume these are issuance of debentures, and that are these issuances that we've already committed to, and where did we come up with the figure of $6 million?
The chair to Councillor Cook. Nope, these we have not committed to this borrowing, and yes, it typically our borrowing for municipalities go through ACFA or the government of Alberta. But what I found dealing with chartered banks over the last couple of years is sometimes their rates are even better. It all depends how you can negotiate rates. In terms of how we came up with that number, I'll get you an answer right now. So for 2030, it's the amount is $2 million, and that is for the washroom change room replacement at Centennial Park. If council needs more information, my colleague sitting beside me would be able to provide you some more information on that one. The 2031, $1.5 million is for utilities, and that's for the South Reservoir relining. And as I mentioned earlier, the Sportplex, the ice slab replacement, that's $2 million.
And maybe I just add to that as well. When the capital plan gets to a budget year, that's when council will formulate a decision whether to say utilize debt, because council is the only authority that can request a debenture on behalf of the municipality. And right now, to make the outlook balance, debt seems to be one of the preferable vehicles outside of, say, reserves or taxation. But that decision will be made at that year, but as the plan is updated as well.
Good, thank you. You're good? Councillor Overwater? Okay. Any further questions? All right. I see none. Should we get a motion on the floor then, please? Counselor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I make the motion that council receives the draft five-year capital plan 2027 to 2031 as information.
Thank you, Counselor Wilson. Any further questions or comments? See none. All those in favor? Counselor Blatz? Sorry, can I see hands again, please? There we go. That is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation today, Director Alvin, and look forward to working with you on the rest of this. The rest of the story, as they say. So moving down to item 5.4, Town of Old Strategic Plan 2026-30, CAO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. So before council now is the draft strategic plan 2026 to 2030. As you are aware, starting in a session in January led by a third-party facilitator from Civic Excellent, Ms. Lawrenson, council hashed out its priorities and direction for the next 4 years, followed up in early June with a smaller but more direct session on kind of goal confirming with Mr. Henry. And the plan is before you today, slightly adjusted, but largely where it was in January. The advocacy section on the last page has some updates after some liaising with Olds College and some of the advocacy and legislative things that are coming at them with the post-secondary funding model that the town believes we could be an advocate for, given the importance of the college to the town's current and long-term future. But basically, I'm not going to introduce your own plan to you. I will just say that council's primary role is to set the strategic direction of the organization and then to hold accountable those in charge of implementing that direction. And for better or worse, that is me. So you will see come fall, assuming this plan gets passed today, the revision of our current corporate plan, and then shortly following that, the revision of our 5 divisional business plans, which are all subservient to this strategic plan to try to execute the vision, maintain the basic services, core services of the municipality, and then introduce some key performance indicators and measurements to help show council and demonstrate to the public how we stay within our guardrails, parameters, and ensure that we're not just doing the right things, but we're doing things right. So, happy to take any questions on this plan, but it's yours as it is.
Excellent. Thank you very much, CAO Williams. I look to council for discussion, comments, questions, if there are any you would like to bring up at this time. We're all pretty familiar with this document. We've been through it a few times. So, Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. This is more of a comment than a question. Well, I have been through a strategic plan process for an organization in the past, much smaller. I just want to thank CAO Williams and the facilitators and the seasoned counselors here to help us walk through this process. It's quite the undertaking. And so I just wanted to say that it made things a lot easier having some guidance. Thank you.
I'll take that as a compliment, Councillor Kirsch. Any other questions? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley. I feel it important that I also echo those sentiments from Councillor Kirsch. Thank you very much for those seasoned councillors.
Thank you, I think, again. Any other questions? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and I just want to say that I think this was a great team effort from all of us on board, and it's great to have a different perspective from everyone, and we're a diverse group of individuals that sit around the table, and our CAO and our facilitators certainly, and our management team certainly were participating in this, and I'm pleased with this plan, and I'm looking forward to its introduction to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Seeing none then, if we look to page 49, I'll be looking for a motion. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and I move that council approve the Town of Olds 2026 to 2030 strategic plan as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Any last questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Moves down to item 5.5, Office of the Chief Administrative Officer Quarterly Report, and turn the floor over to CAO Williams for his presentation.
Thank you once again. I think it's a separate file, right? This report's a little bit longer than usual, as I'm adding on the 2026 financial report at the end. I'll break for questions before I get there. So I'll run through this rather summary, if I'm capable to do that, which please see. But feel free to stop me or at the end ask for more clarification on things I may pass over curtly. So to start with Invest Olds, the NGEI initiative, which is the current phase of the Brood project, 8 projects in action, 19 projects pending action. Come back to that in a moment. The connector forum was held last month. Came back very well rated by attendees. Some lessons learned for next year, and next year's already booked thanks to the large level of sponsorships. We're able to fund the next iteration of this in 2027, so save the date for April 8th. A positive note on the regional picture, as you know, Invest Olds is the leading agency for Central Alberta First, which is a group of regional municipalities along with a few other government agencies, Red Deer Polytechnic and Olds College. Over the next 2 years, they have leveraged roughly $670,000 in federal and provincial funding, along with the standard $82,000 generally per year commitment of the funding partners. So that allows us to execute regional projects, but also allows, based on contributions, each of the individual municipalities or agencies to execute their own projects. And it's been quite beneficial for us to get certain things off the ground and complete it, or obviously our ACDEV strategy, but the corresponding documents like the industry cluster analysis, the workforce development surveys, and the staffing capacity as well. Just a few Invest Olds KPIs based on the ACDEV strategy, and we'll hone this a bit better as we get further on from the ACDEV strategy, but taking KPIs directly from there, some of the key work that was done over the last quarter from Invest Olds. And regarding the rural entrepreneur and rural renewal stream, we believe the rural entrepreneur stream continues to work well and aren't expecting major changes to that. The rural renewal stream, which is the individual immigration program, the province is probably going to make some adjustments here in the near future, and I'll report on those next quarter. Legislative services, just the bylaws approved since my last quarterly report, as you are aware. Similar thing to policies. Sponsorship and donations, as you were last meeting, we have exhausted with the additional $50 allocation to the Summer Synergy Program, the 2026 council sponsorship item, and that's why we're into Mountain View Power. I believe after today's allocation, roughly $1,200 remains in MVP's sponsorship budget. On the data center front, no update to share on the data district. I do hope to have one in the near future for council and the public, but nothing today to share. On the Synapse front, the AUC application has been restarted after a pause. A new information request was issued, mostly around the gas, the power plant and a gas sourcing side of things. Nothing so much from the town's perspective. The SIP deadline was extended to July 15th, this Wednesday. We have posted on our social media channels about that, encouraging people who haven't yet and who are interested, who have concerns or are in support to to file a SIP. And again, no development application has been submitted. As Director Lapointe mentioned, we have launched a new engagement page in general, and that engagement page does have a data center, a more robust data center presence. It's engage.olds.ca data-center-developments. Based on our analysis of July 1st of the AUC portal of the SIP submissions, we had over 1,300 SIPs submitted. 1,120 of those as of July 1st were unique submissions after you discount documents that were submitted by individuals and duplicate submissions and things like that. When we compare that against other databases we have, like our utility and tax accounts, our best estimate that there's about 646 Olds residences that submitted SIPs, roughly based on 2025 municipal affairs population estimates, 6.5% of our population participated. Of those 646 people, we identified about 479 households. And as of, it was mid-June, AUC has given standing about 680 individuals to date, so not that far off, especially when you consider Mountain View County residents in proximity would have been given standing as well. And I believe there was several of county residents who filled out SIPs also. But we'll update this as of July 15th and share that with council over the summer break. Of the SIP submissions, this is harder for us to confirm with a personal touch because AI helped us to aggregate this information. It's quite a lot of information, but roughly 20% of SIPs were explicitly against data centers, no Synapse development regardless. About 79% were certainly against developments, but mainly because there was unresolved concerns. So there's a bit of assumptions built in there that they didn't explicitly say they were against all data center development or against the project without issue, just that there was concerns listed in there that needed to be resolved. And then a small amount, 0.5 SIPs were in favor. Project initiatives ongoing. We have a bunch of open engagements right now. The Centennial Park Improvement Plan, very brief engagement, more on the draft plan that exists, is currently open, as is the 2027 budget survey, an annual exercise here. That will be open until early to mid-August. As I mentioned in the last item, the corporate plan review will begin shortly and hope to introduce that to council in late September, early October. And the Regional Recreation Project, the survey is still open, but the work continues and the consultant should be able to present to council by late September on the results of that study. Health and safety stats, as generally happens as we move into the summer months, we have summer students coming on board, so we see an uptick in our health and safety reports. That's a bit small, but yeah, ending, it was from April until July, so right in the prime time when our students learn how to operate mowers and tractors for the first time, oftentimes, and from collisions to personal injuries. Fortunately, nothing has been serious. I believe 1 or 2 visits to the hospital just to get checked out, but no lost time injuries and nothing that caused people to miss work. But it seems like a lot, but it is a recurring thing in this quarter of each year, unfortunately. Reporter problem stats. Year over year, we are still generally trending in a higher utilization of reporter problem, which is good. Month to month comparison, significantly down over 2025, which for those returning councillors would recall, we were in the heat of naturalization this time last year, hence the significant discrepancy between the Junes. And not surprisingly, roads and sidewalks continue to be a significant source with potholes. And speaking to even our asphalt maintenance program, as I briefly alluded to, it is unfortunate that even though we spend a lot of money on asphalt maintenance, we don't see a lot of improvement, and that's basically because our asphalt program follows around our utilities department who digs holes in the ground, and that's where we spend the bulk of our asphalt budget, whereas there's still a lot of other streets that could use those monies, but it's much more prudent to patch those holes, which are now, I think we're well over 40 of those either patched or outstanding, waiting to be patched. So again, I have the 2026 financial report, which I'll briefly run through, but I'll stop here for any questions pertinent to the OCAO report and division.
Thank you. Councillor Blatz and then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to CO Williams, pardon me. Not really a comment or question, more or less just a comment. When we review the AUC SIP, which is Statement of Intent to Participate submissions, I mean, it's a very good, fulsome participation by residents in surrounding area. And I believe through that process, the AUC will answer a lot of their concerns, and hopefully put everything to rest. But I just wanted to state, as I was quoted on social media, that to date, council has not made any decision on this, and there's been no development permit before us on this proposed data center. And I believe that we are allowing this process to happen so that we can address some of the engineering impacts and benefits and safeguards that can be evaluated. And a mandatory process, a regulatory process, should not be, in my thoughts, approved nor denied before the work has been done to test the evidence. And I believe that the AUC is the best place to state and to test any of that evidence that's coming before us. And so I'm hoping that we're allowed to follow through with this process, and at that point in time, when it is finalized, make a decision based on some of the evidence that we are provided with by the AUC. So I thank you for allowing me to make that comment.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley, and through to C.A. Williams. I was forwarded an article from the Edmonton Journal, talked a bit about how Meta was engaged with Olds before they went up to Sturgeon County. Now, after reading that article, it seems like they really conflated Meta and Synapse an awful lot in that article. I'm hoping you'd be able to just address that that claim head on, that Meta was talking to Olds. Thanks.
Thank you. And Chair, yeah, that article was aware to me yesterday, and I did contact the Edmonton Journal, and they have since updated that article as well on their webpage to remove some of the inaccuracies. But no, Meta has not ever approached the town of Olds to set up a data center here. And yeah, there's no clear way to say it that I have never spoken to Meta.
Good enough. Thanks.
Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and I do have a question. I believe it was on about March 27th. A few of us attended a meeting with Minister Glubish, and I see that he's been quoted in some of these Meta announcements too, discussing Olds and the Synapse data center project, and it appears that he said, what he said to the media is not really what I interpreted during that meeting, and maybe I misunderstood or misread something during that conversation, but can you elaborate further to me on our relationship with the province on with the data center concierge and the timing of the press releases for the data center announcements? Thank you.
Sure. As mentioned, at the political level, I believe council in some form has met with Minister Glubish 3 times. Once in March, as mentioned, once when he was here in Olds at his presentation, after the presentation, and then again virtually on May 13th, where the then Minister of Affordability and Utilities was in attendance as well. And given his remarks in Olds during his public Q&A session, and again, what appears to be late last week, he hasn't shared the same sentiment in private as he has with the public or the media around Olds' data center projects, Synapse in particular. I can't speculate as to why the messaging would be different or why he wouldn't give us the same level of candor he gives to in public places. But I mean, I certainly could speculate, but I'm not sure if it would be appropriate. But yeah, Councillor Betts, you were in the room for certainly one of those conversations, and I believe the message that we mutually agreed upon at all three of those, or at least for two of those, which I was a part of, was that the town wants to align with the province to attract data centers, and there's processes in place to adjudicate them, and if they can't be built responsibly or safely, then they shouldn't be built at all. And that's certainly, Minister Glubish, my understanding, agreed to that, as did Minister Neudorf, the then Minister of Utilities and Affordability. So what has changed in that time, or if it's just for public pomp and ceremony, it's hard to say. On the data center concierge office, I've been engaged with them since early January. That is where the data district announcement came through. It came through Invest Alberta, and it was announced before the town even knew about it. So certainly that firm was engaged with the data center concierge team, and via Invest Alberta, them and then the Premier made those announcements, which then we followed with our own announcement. On the Synapse side, Minister Glubish is correct, they were later in contacting the data center concierge office, but they were in contact by mid-January, give or take those dates as well. I know that because I made that introduction as I was meeting with the concierge team prior to that becoming public as well. So again, it's tough to go back and try to make things better or argue about what did happen or what should have happened, but I believe the province is doing a good job. It has done a good job in taking this very fast-paced industry and courting them to Alberta, which we do need economic growth, but certainly some more kinks to work out in that process. And should the province decide to update their rules, we're happy to follow them.
Supplemental?
Yes, please. Well, kind of going back to my comments and part of my question, but the AUC, or the Alberta Utility Commission, is regulated by provincial legislation, so they're only going to follow what the province has told them to begin with anyway, if I understood what from their presentation to council, the AUC's presentation to council. So I would trust then that through this process, any regulatory legislation will be followed by the AUC, and it will be in the best interest of the community as a whole.
Yeah, through the chair, correct. The AUC does determine public interest if a project's in the public interest, and that involves in large scale their engineering tests, and then through the SIP process if concerns could be addressed. But the AUC only addresses concerns within their jurisdiction, and that's most of the key concerns are the power plant, the emergency generators, the battery storage components, noise. Those are things that they will adjudicate. And things like being against AI or the concerns with AI, that's outside of their purview, as it's outside of ours. So it's, but I believe the core concerns will be addressed by the AUC and approved or turned down.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and to CAO Williams. Now that the province has changed some rules about, bringing your own power, so now my understanding is some data centers can connect to the grid, whereas before it was very prominent in their, in the government's voice that you had to bring your own power. So now they're changing some of the rules again. So how are we supposed to navigate that when, we have people in the public asking us many questions about, power, their electrical bills and stuff like that, when the province keeps changing the rules? Maybe it's more of a statement than a question for you, but it is definitely a statement.
Yeah, and through the chair, what wasn't that long ago, they adjusted the very recent rules around bring your own power. If you're unaware that data centers that connect to the grid were originally going to be charged 1% to 2% of a levy based on their computing equipment value for that grid connection to stabilize, power prices for consumers. This summer already it was changed by the province of Alberta, coincidentally just before the announcement of the Meta data center in Sturgeon County, where as long as a data center that connects to the electrical grid plans on bringing their own power, they will be subject to a reduced levy, which could be 0 to 1.9%, for example. So you're right. We'll see where that goes, but it doesn't bode well for public confidence, because a big piece of public confidence is being eroded by the stories in the United States. And one of the big issues in the United States is the fluctuating price of electricity, generally fluctuating up in areas where there's data centers. So the bring your own power, natural gas generated electricity components seem to really get around that. But with the Alberta Energy System Operator announcing last year they have about 1.2 gigawatts of capacity, I believe the Meta project alone is due to take about 975 of those megawatts, which is essentially all of it. If that undermines the credibility of the process, but hopefully the AESO projections of 1.2 gigawatts is accurate, and it will help. It won't destabilize grid prices and make people more upset. But it's just interesting the timing of those announcements as well.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the CEO. And I'll ask a very highly speculative question, because I always like those speculative questions. So in the case with Synapse and the proponent, if they decide to shift gears, given this recent change by the provincial government, what is your take or your view in terms of Fortis and the town's infrastructure to accommodate this change, to accommodate if the proponent were to shift gears away from bringing your own power to tapping into the grid? Is that feasible, doable, or it's feasible and doable, but with a significant capital investment by the proponent?
I think it's both, actually. A significant capital investment just in transmission infrastructure would be required. We have no major substations in this area that I'm aware of, so Calgary to Red Deer, you would have to connect into with new lines. But again, with the AESO saying there's only 1.2 gigawatts available in the entire province for spare capacity in the electrical grid, and Meta taking up the vast majority, there's no more room for anyone else either. So this was obviously pre-planned and over the last 12 to 24 months for Meta to have this capacity already allocated. So so to answer your question briefly, there's no potential or risk of Synapse or any other data center proponent connecting to the electrical grid in Olds or this immediate area.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, as long as there's no other questions. And so when we had the AUC present to council, and then they also had their town hall, but certainly when they presented to council, they gave a timeline that could stretch up to 295 days relative to the adjudication of the Synapse application. Have you heard through anything or witnessed or seen anything, or is there anything that's happening relative to the Synapse application that would say 295 days? And again, I'm asking you to speculate because I know we all like that. That 295 days is a likely reasonable time, or when would, or is it possible that something could come forward sooner, or not at all likely?
Through the chair, I still think 295 days plus you add in the pause. I believe it did stop that process. That is still the framework we're working within. But I didn't see, I'm not sure if it's released yet, that updated schedule that the AUC had prior, which was the actual project suspension. So the SIP deadline is July 15th, and I assume there will be another deadline for interveners to ask questions, another deadline for the proponent to respond. I do believe at each one of those deadlines, given a bit of time, more information or prognosis will be inferred at the very least. But we're still working with, late January, early February as in terms of a project yay or nay decision.
Councillor Overwater?
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and to CAO Williams. Off the data center project, report a problem. Whoever responds, no, whoever sends in a report a problem, is there always a direct response? Does that person have to tick on there saying, I want a response and reply to me? And if they don't, then they don't get a response. But then do you send the bylaw person out to check it out, or how does that really work?
Through the chair, so to the first part of your question is the people who fill in a report a problem have to click they want a response, or there'll be no response. Generally, everyone gets an automated response confirming it's been submitted. We try to respond within 3 to 5 days via email or phone call. Bylaw complaints, we encourage us to go through a 24/7 dispatch line, which is actually operated by operators. So we don't have a lot of bylaw complaints coming through reported problems. But for something like barking dog complaints or potholes, generally we're able to respond to those within 3 to 5 days. Either telling them that we looked at it or we will look at it. So that's our best effort anyways.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. And yes, I'm going in a different direction as well. I think it's the rural renewal stream that I have in my little brain. I'm just wondering if you could talk to that a little bit. I think the window opened up last week. The reference is July 7th. And I had somebody mention to me that it was almost like trying to buy Taylor Swift tickets on Ticketmaster. Like there were only 7 spots, I think, available. So I'm just wondering, how do those spots get determined? Because, the window opened, and then within a day, I think it was closed, which obviously indicates a great interest and so on. But can you talk a little bit about that stream and how it works and how 7 was the number decided?
Thanks. And through the chair, so with the July 7th opening, we did have some technical glitches in our website. But we did eventually get more applications than we had room for. I'm not exactly sure how it works right now on the allocated spaces. I do know that the EDAC committee, which Councillor Krush and Councillor Overwater sit on, they are responsible for adjudicating those applications and deciding. So I may have to lean on them if you have any information that I don't have right now.
Go ahead, Councillor Krush.
Thank you. And through you to Councillor Wilson, I'm on the RRS subcommittee through EDAC. What happened? We have 7 potential spots open, and there was what we believe was the website just couldn't handle the traffic. I don't think that the website's designed to handle any traffic at all, but so it was left open longer than anticipated, and the RRS committee went back and allowed more submissions than were originally supposed to go in, just to make it okay for the people who didn't get their submissions in. So those will be adjudicated, I think, in the next couple weeks through the subcommittee. There is a method in which the applications will be vetted beforehand, just to eliminate anyone who doesn't actually qualify. But there was an announcement by the province that July 30th, I believe, they will be closing the program indefinitely. And so this is the last chance to get into that program until the province catches up. I believe they're 1 or 2 years behind, so it doesn't really seem plausible to put in more applications at this point. So I believe that that's why they're closing it for the foreseeable future.
Good, thank you. Any further comments, questions? No? Did you want to carry on with your final financial?
Sure,
report?
and just briefly, because it was released officially last week, I know council has seen it in the past, and the 2026 financial report, which is kind of our third iteration of doing this, 2024, 25, and now 26. So the purpose of this report is to, in more plain language, kind of decipher the 2025 or the previous year's financial statements, then to provide some benchmarking exercises against like-sized municipalities, and then to provide just a explanation of what our priorities are based on the challenges we're seeing in the current year and years ahead. So in 2025, you already heard the auditor's presentation, so we don't have to go through it. But in summary, we did have a comparatively good year, certainly in relation to the last several, with a return to surplus of over $1 million being added to our accumulated surplus, $4.6 million in debt reduction, debt utilization figures down from 65 to 51%. That being said, our long-term debt is still at $22 million, even though that's down from the low 30s 4 years ago. We still have a way to go to probably get to a more sustainable threshold, and 2031 again is that target. Our reserves are still well below our comparator group, $5 million in unrestricted, restricted reserves. We do need to get those higher, both for emergency's sake, but also to start leveraging things like investment income and more proactive capital management of our assets. And our assessment split is around 79 to 21 residential to non-residential. Again, our target is 70-30. On the benchmarking piece, we choose 6 other municipalities just who are like size in population in assessment base as best we can, as those are the municipalities that have a similar level of service to us, a similar level of infrastructure, similar level of, say, recreation facilities. It's not always going to be apples to apples, but we think it's still a good exercise to see how close we are. So just a few of the categories, and we compare against many, but total revenue, we're still similar to previous years. Olds collects over $1 million less in revenue than our peer group, and in corresponding, we spend roughly $1 million less as well on average than our peer group does. And these do fluctuate a little each year, but we've never exceeded those in the years we've been tracking this. Expenses. So even though we spend at or under every major category tracked in financial statements, the areas where we spend over, it's modest in recreation, but utilities is the primary expense, where we spend over $2 million more than our average peer group. That was too soon. And that's because we are connected to both a regional water line and a regional wastewater line, which drives up operating costs much higher, but also because of our significant water loss in I&I in comparison to our peer group. It accounts for roughly 20% of our utility bills. On the salaries and benefits expense, always a popular subject, mainly on Facebook, but elsewhere, about how many staff we have and how much we pay them. As the Old spends over $3 million a year less on staffing than our peer group as well. And just like the overall revenue expenditures, if we do have comparable service levels in swimming pools and arenas and rotary parks and roads and sidewalks and playgrounds, we don't have as many staff or don't collect enough revenue or spend enough to operate in the same way that they do. So some service level discrepancies are to be expected, is the inference from there. And the CAO salary comparison for the same group is also included there just to help council explain me. On the tax side, I got the heading wrong, this is taxes, but tax rates, which is not the full picture, our tax rates are about 22% lower on the residential side, closer to 30% on the non-residential side than our comparator group. It doesn't mean everyone's taxes are lower necessarily. You have to add in the value of your house, of course, and our assessments do tend to trend higher than our average peer group. But on our tax revenue piece, another key category, even though our tax rates are lower, we still don't collect as much revenue from taxes as our peer group does either. So make whatever inference you wish there. So then it kind of ends on, focus for this year going to next year on obviously the infrastructure side. We're seeing progress in water loss and I&I, but we're still not out of the woods. In Director Pedro's next quarterly report, you will see June was a very rough month for I&I with, I think it jumped from 24% to 58% just because of the significant rainfall and this groundwater that infiltrates when it gets into the ground. So even though water loss is a positive, we do have all our other assets coming due, whether it be the sportsplex or facilities or roads, playgrounds. Things are aging here quite a lot, largely because of deferred capital maintenance. And it's a battle everyone's facing. I would say what makes us unique is that water loss I&I and our higher debt load and our lower reserves. On the fiscal resilience piece, I think debt management is the positive story told here, that we have cut our debt substantially in the last few years, and we're on track to get down below our comparator average by 2031 if no new debt's taken on. But your debt limit capacity does change year over year based on your revenue. It's a formula Municipal Affairs uses. In fiscal resilience, on the negative piece, even though we're making financial progress, it talks about affordability, that we can't neglect the fact that we are making financial progress, but it's being paid for by existing residents and existing taxpayers, and we have to keep into the fact that not only is fiscal discipline important, but so is growing our tax base, so there's more people to share that burden. And long-term planning, housing starts. Obviously, the 2024, 2025 saw 130 housing starts, which was tied the record. Obviously, more than a quadfold increase over previous years, and we're going to see that trend continue at least for the next 2 to 3 years in housing starts as well, which is important. It's not a key piece to our long-term fiscal sustainability, but it's an important piece. On the negative side is asset management. Even though we're still building our asset management program, it's coming along well. The problem is the better data we have, the more that data shows how much of a capital liability we truly have. So, and 2026 and beyond, it just speaks to that progress is occurring, but it will be slow and uneven. That, as you saw in the capital plan a few moments ago, $30+ million over the next 5 years. It's probably not feasible to fund all those projects, so we have to make some hard decisions. But at the same time, broken record here, tax-based growth is essential, especially in the industrial, less or so commercial sectors, not just to get more revenue, but to have that cyclical economic benefit for jobs and existing small businesses. And then the balance of fiscal discipline versus our needs versus opportunities, as council balances every meeting. But the 2026 report is live on our website. We'll have some social media going out the next 4 or 5 weeks, just kind of trying to draw people to that document to include them in the conversation. Happy to take any questions you have on that. If not,
Thank you, CEO Williams, for your presentation. Turn to council now for any questions or comments on the financial portion of the report. Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to CEO Williams. You mentioned 2024, 2025 had record-breaking housing starts. Do you project similar numbers for 2026?
Through the chair, I'm predicting we'll have probably a little bit lower in 2026, just based on some projects that are in the queue and when we trigger a housing start calculation or include a housing start. But I think 2027 will be a record year, breaking the 130 unit threshold. So I might be wrong. It may approach 130, but I'm thinking it'll be closer to 80 to 100 housing starts in 2026, and then well above that in 2027.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Kirsch.
Thank you, Mayor Daley, and through you to C.A. Williams again. Similar vein, we're talking about earlier commercial vacancy. Do you happen to know what our commercial vacancy is right now, or availability of commercial lands for developers potentially coming into Olds?
Good question. And through the chair, I only have stats for 2024 is when we last, like third party last calculated commercial vacancy. I don't think it's changed too much, except for probably Uptown Olds has gotten a little bit more vacant than it did in 2024. I believe in 2024 it was around 20% vacancy. It probably rised a couple percentage points. I think West Old, mainly at Cornerstone, is relatively stable. I do believe there's one store with experiencing a corporate bankruptcy right now, but which will add to that rate. But their 2024 it was around 1%. As far as vacant lands go, there are a significant amount of vacant commercial lands, mainly in the West Corridor, Canadian Tire, across the road at Loblaws, the vacant lots next to the credit union. Further north, the vacant land on the south side of Highway 27, just west of 57th Avenue, future commercial, and a few other infill areas. But we are seeing new commercial builds, I think in Highway 27, 49th Avenue, obviously the 6-story apartment building with commercial mixed use. So I think we have easily 20 to 30 years of commercial land inventory in stock. And even on Highway 27 in the Northeast Industrial area, even though rezoning was done to zone to light industrial, the full highway strip, light industrial still includes commercial uses. It just removes the residential side of what we call highway commercial. So we still have other avenues long-term there as well.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions? All right. Thank you very much for your presentation. Take us back to page 63 of our agenda. Look for a motion. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Mayor Daley. I move that Council accepts the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer quarterly report as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Any further comments or questions? All right, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for that. Okay, takes us down to item 6, council reports. If you look in your agenda in the package, because of the timing of this meeting, of course, some councillors gave their reports last meeting and some gave this meeting, and I'm sure the ones that did not submit a report this time is looking to do their report on August 24th as well. So there you'll see that there's, 3 reports that have been submitted on this, Blatz, Overwater, and Wilson. Is there any questions on their reports from any of the councillors or updates, anything that you would want to highlight for those that have been submitted? Anything? No? Go ahead, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Just a comment on some of my thing here. On June 22nd, I attended the Olds Transparency Project meeting at Hainstock to listen to residents regarding the data center. And I just want to make a note that Council is listening. We have gone to these meetings. We've gone to several meetings. So, you know, when a portion of the public is stating that we're not going to these meetings and we're not listening, I have to disagree with them, because we have gone to many of these meetings and we are listening, and there is a process that we're following, and we will continue to follow that process until it's deemed that AUC does not feel that this will be a viable project. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any Other comments or questions? Okay, so that takes us to page 65. Yep. Okay,
I move that
thanks.
council accepts the office, oops, wrong one. I move that council accepts the reports from council board committees and commissions ending on July 13th, 2026 be received for information.
Thank you. Last comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Move down to correspondence and information. That takes us down to page 73 of your agenda package. And you can see there that there's a list of correspondence that we have received over the past month in regards to various topic areas. And so is there any questions or comments that you would like to make on the correspondence? Okay, thank you, Councillor Overwater.
Yes, I move that the correspondence and information report ending July 13th, 2026 be received for information.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Takes us down to item number 8, closed session. Can I get somebody to make a motion to go into closed session? Don't everybody jump at once. Councillor Kirsch.
I move that council moves into closed session. Item number 1, ATIA Section 20 disclosure harmful to personal privacy personnel at 3:23 p.m.
Thank you. All those in favor? All right, that is carried. Thank you very much. So when council goes into closed session for continued participation in virtual meeting, stay online in the live stream meeting platform, and the meeting stream will be replaced by a graphic. When the graphics are removed, that will indicate that the meeting is ready to reconvene. So as of 3:23, I think we're ready to go into closed session. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We came out of closed session. Motion was made by Councillor Blatz at 4:11. 4:11. And I'll look to council for a rising report. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Mayor Daley. Yes, I move that we accept the personnel report from CAO Williams for information.
Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And item number 10 is adjournment. No objection. I adjourn at 4:13. Thank you, everyone, for your discussion and your time today. Have a great day and a great summer.